It's the USS Abraham Lincoln that's making its way to the Middle East. And does anybody believe that the protesters are safe? What President Trump says and what he does are very often two different things. I'm Tony Katz. The show is Tony Katz Today. Let the show begin. Here we go. The aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln is making its way to the Middle East right now from out of the South China Sea. I would be hard pressed to think that there's anyone who would believe that just because the Iranian regime has said, you know what, we're not going to kill the protesters, that they're not going to kill the protesters. You'd have to be insane to believe that. Well, President Trump said it. President Trump said they agreed not to kill the protesters, and that's really important because President Trump said it. Well, it must be true. Whoa. Have we learned nothing? This isn't an attack on Donald Trump in the slightest. This is the recognition that there's a big difference between what the president says and what the president does. This was from the White House just yesterday.
Did we have some other little things to talk about? Maybe we'll start that first. Should I start that first? I think they're going to want me to. I have a feeling they're going to want me to. We have been notified and pretty strongly, but we'll find out what that all means. But we've been told that the killing in Iran is stopping, and it's stopped and it's stopping. And there's no plan for executions or executions. So I've been told that on good authority. We'll find out about it. I'm sure if it happens, we'll all be very upset, including you will be very upset. But that's just gotten to me, some information that the killing has stopped, that the executions have stopped. They're not going to have an execution.
It was Caitlin Collins who then asked the question, well, do you believe them? Well, what do you mean? Do I believe them? Why would anybody anywhere believe them? Tony Katz Today. Good to be with you. I forgot to say hello. Sometimes I forget. The president will very often, in his theories and philosophies about leverage, in his want to talk, will say things and then will utilize the following expression. Good, right? They're doing good things. You know what? I've got a great relationship with them. You know what? I really appreciate that. He said that of the vice president of Venezuela. She sold us the oil. Here it was. She got us the oil, 50 million barrels of oil. You know, she's just terrific.
See how it all works out. I think something will work out. Yeah.
Venezuela, Cabello, the de facto number 2 in Venezuela right now, he seemed pretty reluctant to work with the U.S. And obviously
they just gave us 50 million barrels of oil.
The number 2, the Venezuela security.
I don't know. I know the number 1. We just had a great conversation today. And she's a terrific person. I mean, she's somebody that we've worked with very well. Marco Rubio is dealing with her. I dealt with her this morning.
She's not a terrific person. She's awful. She's part of the Maduro regime. There's absolutely no difference in her running the country or Maduro running the country. None. She's a great person. But what do you want the man to say? What do you want him to say? Oh, that Delcy Rodriguez, she's a low-life scumbag. You know, her mom's a skank. Oh, my gosh. I heard she's got 3 or 4 different sexually transmitted diseases, and she does a really good job or a really terrible job playing mahjong. Like, she's just, what in the world do you want the man to say? This is just part of his affect. This is just part of his style, and I can appreciate that it drives some people batty. No one should trust that the Iranians aren't killing people right now. People should trust that there is movement afoot. You have the USS Abraham Lincoln making its way. you have, according to multiple sources, air traffic diverting itself around Iran. You had the Chinese landing planes in Tehran. Were they there to grab some hardware? Were they there to drop some hardware off? Were they there to get their people, extract them? Is it possible the Ayatollah went with them? I would think it would be a weird move for China to take in the Ayatollah. I would think that to be a very provocative measure. But everybody is gearing up. Everybody is getting ready for what is coming next. And now, in the breaking news of the morning, you had the administration announcing additional sanctions against Iranian officials. The Secretary of Iran's Supreme Council for National Security designating 18 people and entities accused of money laundering, of Iranian oil sales to foreign markets. The objective is to put more of a squeeze on. More of a squeeze does not lead to, okay, we'll treat the protesters nicer. One of the things to watch here is to ask yourself, is this the end of the regime at all? President Trump, when talking about Venezuela, created a bothersome moment for people, and we discussed it here on the show. Not in the taking of Maduro. Fine, no issue, no problem. People called that regime change, and what we discussed here was if the rest of the people remain like the Vice President, Delcy Rodriguez, it's not regime change. It's a different outfit. It's the same person. It's the same attitude, same philosophy. In order for the Venezuelan people to really have a better opportunity, you need this group of commie authoritarians gone. That's what you need. And so we should be asking ourselves, should we be assisting in that process? Well, if we are to believe in the value of the Monroe Doctrine, that the Western Hemisphere belongs to the United States, and we will not allow, as the Monroe Doctrine did, European influence into the hemisphere, we, in today's world, will not allow Chinese or Russian influence into the hemisphere, well, then the Maduro regime has to go in full for the sake of the U.S. and its national security. So let me say it again, because I see the comments, and the comments in the chat room there is, it's not our job. I'm saying maybe it is, and maybe it's President Trump who made it our job by saying that we are going to be bringing back the Monroe Doctrine and referring to it as the Trump Doctrine or the Donroe Doctrine, however you want to describe that. But if indeed the Monroe Doctrine, which it does, states that we will thwart European influence in the Western Hemisphere, and we are applying it to today, then we need to be people who ask what that means. And what I believe it means, if I extrapolate it out, is that the Maduro regime can't remain. It can't remain. Why is the President of the United States getting involved in discussing how Iran is treating protesters? Now, that's a very Tucker Carlson kind of question. I ask it as to set up the conversation. It is obvious that we are getting involved because there is a recognition that a free Iran, an Iran that is not run by the Ayatollah, by the mullahs, by the hardliners, by the clerics, is an Iran that no longer is trying to engage any level of hegemony. It is an Iran that is no longer funding terrorist outfits and organizations that are not only a problem to Israel, but to all other nations, because they can no longer engage peacefully. They're forced into these fights and forced into these sides for fear of what the Iranian regime might do. The problem is Iran. It is the opposite of what the Obama administration thought, whether it be Barack Obama himself or some of his top lackeys like Ben Rhodes, who have the audacity to talk about the Middle East now like he knows what he's talking about. Oh, you can tell me all the study he has done. He couldn't take me on in the debate. I talk into a microphone and I smoke cigars all day. He's got no shot. All right, maybe I do a little bit more than that. But still, being self-deprecating. We're getting involved because it is clearly in America's interest for Iran not to be, through the Ayatollah, a hegemonic power. Now, that doesn't mean we're still not going to have other issues. We have clearly made a case for our relationship with Saudi Arabia. We can't go back in time and treat them the way they need to be treated for September 11th. We live in the now. We have the ever eastward-looking Turks under President Erdogan. This was a Muslim nation, but Western-looking, a member of NATO, and a thriving society. Bring in Erdogan, it has become more militant. It has become more Islamic. It has become more dangerous. This was a nation that was working with us to build the F-35 strike fighter and then purchase the Su-400 missile defense system from Russia, which is meant to be the what? F-35 killer. Now, I think we've kind of proven that the Su-400 isn't actually as good a defense system as we were sold on. And the Russian military can't actually do everything the Russian military said that it could do. It does have capabilities. It has nuclear weapons. It has hypersonics. But when you have a NATO nation buying defense systems from the Russians, recognizing that NATO is set up to deal with the Russian threat, Turkey becomes a problem. And they may want to be that power or extending their power through Syria and other places. You may then have to deal with the battle between the Turks and the Saudis. You may have other players that want to come up and prop themselves up. But you cannot fix everything. You cannot solve every problem. Well, you can if you can stay out of it. No, you're not going to stay out of it because Iran doesn't stay out of it if this regime is still in power. And by saying, if you kill the protesters, we're coming for you. If you tell the protesters help is on its way, you actually have to bring the help. So you may argue that Trump's not going to get us in another war. I don't actually think it will be a war. I think he's going to utilize what's already happening on the ground and just kind of nudge it along. Give it a little push, a little shove. Little A, there you go. And off the diving board you go. Oh, look at that. You could swim, Tommy. Good for you. Because there's a chance to completely reset the Middle East here. There's a large chance. While I discuss some of the issues, there's also opportunity. Iran, as a signatory of the Abraham Accords, changes much. And we should be in favor of this. The opportunities here are great. There's no guarantee to them. And the idea of, well, we shouldn't be involved in all, people can say it, but here we are. President Trump made us involved. Help is on its way. If you kill protesters, we're coming after you. More sanctions, the sending of the USS Abraham Lincoln. I am more and more a believer that if there is any kinetic strike, it's going to come from the Israelis. It could come from the U.S. from the F-35 fighters that we have sold to Saudi Arabia. I don't know if those have been delivered yet or not. I think it comes from the Israelis. And I think it's this show of force of who really favors a free Iran and free people. And it resets the Middle East. Does President Trump believe the Ayatollah that he's not going to kill anybody? I don't believe President Trump believes that for a second. I believe he says things because that's how he talks. That's how he talks. I have seen him engage with people where he is brutal and aggressive, and then the deal works out. He's like, oh, yeah, they're great. Yeah, we had a disagreement. It's over. That's how he operates. But if he operates like that and allows the Ayatollah to stick around because, hey, he promised not to kill anybody, okay, this is over, it's a disaster for him. In some cases, it's just his words. In some cases, the situation is dictating. And in the case of Iran, the situation is dictated. I think in Venezuela, the same thing has to happen. In order for the United States to be safe, and in order for him to say, we follow the Monroe Doctrine, you must get rid of the Russian influence. That means the Maduro regime must go. And don't get mad at me and don't call me a warmonger. This is what the president wants. I'm just playing it out to the end. I'm Tony Katz, and this is Tony Katz Today. Welcome back, everybody. Tony Katz Today. I'm sorry, I had to deal with the people in the chat who did Trump. I missed. Was I off the day where he referred to a reporter as a piggy? Because now people do that all the time, and it's like, oh, I know I shouldn't be insulted, but something about that is just so nasty. So terribly nasty. Goodness gracious. Anyway, good to be here. Good to be with you. Kenneth, what's up with you? A lot to get to. We've got a White House briefing today, which is kind of groovy. What am I smoking? This is the Aging Room Sumatra Churchill. It is a box press. Box press right there. So. Was that it, Wendy? She was trying to hog the questions, and that's why Trump called her a piggy? Where was I? How did I miss that? I don't know. Oh, wait. Did Wendy just make that up? Because I was totally in. I was completely bought in. Well done. Well played. Good to be here. Good to be with you. Let's see what else we've got going on. Everything is streaming. Don't forget to subscribe there on the YouTube, youtube.com/Tony Katz. Man, growth has been great lately and can't thank you enough. You asked me this question the other day, Rod. Where is my Elon flamethrower? I do not own one. Should I get a flamethrower from the Boring Company? The vote on the War Powers Act. It was turned down. It was Vice President J.D. Vance who came in as the tiebreaker, blocking the Venezuela War Powers resolution. Tony Katz today. President Trump clearly able to get enough Republicans on board to say, hey, let me just keep doing what it is that I do here. It was 5 Republicans who had joined Democrats to advance this resolution. This trying to stop President Trump from being able to engage with Venezuela. The Democrats have got it into their head that somehow what Trump did was in capturing Maduro was wrong. It was not. Precedent is on his side. Now, I have stated, and I do still say, that if the president wants to engage in a war action, if the president wants to put troops on the ground, then you'll see Congress say, whoa, that's war, that's us. And they will get, I think, aggressive. That is different than whether or not you want to thwart the president in the ability to do things that are within the president's powers. And it should be clear to everybody playing the home game that Democrats would never vote to stop a Democratic president from doing this. And there were a series of Republicans who were like, whoa, we got to slow this up. We need to keep our power. And one of the people who flipped, right, Josh Hawley flipped. He was going to vote for it, and then he didn't. Susan Collins, Murkowski, and Rand Paul, they all, I think those 3 stuck with their guns, and that's how it got to 50-50. The other person who said he was going to vote for it and flipped, my Senator Todd Young of Indiana. He's one of those senators where, man, people love to hate him. Love to hate him. He has done things that drive me crazy. Drive me nuts. He also, and if we want to get a little inside baseball, allow me, I'll give you my take from being a guy who's in Indiana. He was never a Trump guy. Never a Trump guy. He was somebody who was unwilling in the 2020 election to work with a member of the House to challenge the vote. He was very clear about that. It's not there. I won't do it. It is my take that Team Trump hates that man with a passion. And then Trump comes back and wins again. And what I think Todd Young did is he said, that is not my fight. I'm going to agree very loudly where I can agree, and I'm going to stay silent elsewhere. And that's what he's done. Trying to go under the radar. Was this Trump pressure? Maybe. The presidential pressure happens all the time. I'm Tony Katz. Oh, Team Trump hates that man. With passion, with fervor, they hate that man. He bothers me less than other people. I know other people can't stand him. Cannot stand him. Now, by the way, the Trinidad Espiritu, is that in Cigar Aficionado's top 10? Is that one of those cigars? I think it is. I do think it is. Trinidad Espiritu cigar. Yes, that is what it is. It was a top pick. I've had yes, okay. See, I know things. Also interesting, in one of the more shocking developments, I think it's a quarter three, cigar imports were up last year. What the frick? Everybody's having an economic issue. The COVID boom is over. Imports were up. Fascinating that's happening. It very interesting. But there are some cigars that are from the islands where the tobacco's from the islands, and it's just missing. Those areas haven't developed yet well into blending, and as far as I'm concerned, a host of things. That's why I haven't had the Trinidad yet. I was impressed to see it on the list. But the goods coming out right now from Nicaragua, from the Dominican, of course, leaving that aside, Honduras, it's spectacular. It's just, there's so many good sticks out there right now. My number one, if you follow Eat, Drink, Smoke, we did our cigar of the year and just posted that. Mine was the from Ferio Tego, the timeless TAA exclusive from 2024. That cigar to me is the best thing I smoked all year. It is so tremendous. And then number two, if you want a cigar that is low cost and knock you out, the El Rey Del Mundo Appointment. The name of the cigar is The Appointment. The brand is El Rey Del Mundo, and it's an older name in cigars. It's the kind of thing that most people would like just look over. They'd pass right by it. Outstanding. It was almost my number one. It was like I just in my head. I went this direction with the timeless TAA exclusive. El Rey Del Mundo under $10. Holy cow! Exceptional smoke. Really stunning. Anyway, I should talk more about cigars. Oh, interesting. People are sending me notes. Let me get to a Minneapolis update right here. I want to share that with you. I get to the cigars, and then I forget to focus. Focus is kind of important when you're doing a radio show. And then, of course, the news about Khalil. That's breaking. I want that for you. Another big story out today. Mahmoud Khalil, the anti-American, pro-Palestinian, anti-Semitic, bigoted protester. Well, that's my take. Hey, everyone's allowed their position, and that one is mine. He was released from an immigration jail. Remember, and he comes out, I'm not scared of you, Donald Trump, and oh, the lefties are so happy. This guy was organizing to intimidate Jewish students and others at Columbia and other places. Tony Katz today. Guys, we're live streaming, youtube.com. Go to Tony Katz and subscribe and be a part of it. The show sheet will be up momentarily at tonykatz.com as well. He's the one who he's let out of jail, and there's Representative Ocasio-Cortez, who then has the audacity to talk about the problem with anti-Semitism. She's a delight. A federal appeals court today reversing the lower court opinion and a decision on his release. He could now be detained again and deported. 3-judge panel, although they could go en banc and bring it to the whole Third Circuit. 3-judge panel on the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. They didn't rule on whether the Trump administration's effort to throw him out of the country is unconstitutional. That was not what they engaged in. But in a 2-1 decision, They said that a federal judge in New Jersey didn't have jurisdiction to decide the matter at this time. What has to happen is that this has to move through the immigration courts first before Khalil can challenge the decision. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but for the legal people out there, what this immediately reminds me of is the very concept of standing. When the Trump administration and the Trump reelect in 2020 was saying, wait, there's a problem here, there's a problem there, there's a problem there. And I think one of the greatest things that happened that hurt the country was that there were courts not willing to hear the cases. No, we're not going to hear this case. The Supreme Court wouldn't hear the case. And I think for the Supreme Court, it was basically Texas saying in Pennsylvania, you're disenfranchising our voters. You changed the rules. The judiciary did, not the legislature. You're counting votes ipso facto. This is disenfranchising our voters. We can't have this. And the Supreme Court didn't hear the case. I think it was that case. And I remember that it was Clarence Thomas who said, if we don't hear this, can I ask what it is we do here? Which, take your politics out of it. That's a really smart question. Here is one state saying that another state is usurping its voters, is disenfranchising its voters. And the Supreme Court said, we're not going to hear it. If you don't hear that, what is it that you listen to? What cases possibly could matter? I always thought there was that outside of the politics anybody may have, that's a smart argument. But a lot of these courts said, we're not going to hear this. And a lot of the reason came from the idea of that the administration, or I should say the campaign, didn't have standing. That you didn't have the ability to be part of any lawsuit in this kind. I think is the Latin locus standi? I don't think it's standi. I think it's standi. A party has to demonstrate they have a connection to and harm from the law or the action being challenged. So standing in state court, standing in federal court, you got to be able to show your connection to it. And very often what the Trump team was told was that they didn't have standing. You would only have standing after the event happened. But after the event happened, you would have no recourse to the event. That's super frustrating. That is the immediate vibe I got from this. Now, we've got lawyers who listen to the show. Am I conceptually right, even if I'm wrong with the term? Or am I seeing it wrong? Because that was immediately what I saw. That this has to progress through the courts, the immigration courts, and Khalil can't challenge a decision, and no judge can intervene until a decision comes. Him being held is different than him being deported, because that would be a decision. Now, I would ask the follow-up question. Let's say that the courts come to a decision that he can be deported. Can the Trump administration put him on a plane in the following minutes? And if some judge were to say, well, no, we're gonna put a stay on this, we're gonna question this, do you have to turn the plane around? Or can you send him back first? And then if you're told he's allowed to return, do you have to go get him? This is an Abrego Garcia kind of conversation now. But the fact that it was overturned, I am happy to see that the process still works. The problem is that the process is unbelievably painful to deal with. And very often what you've had from people is saying, President Trump, why is he listening to these courts? These people are all frauds. These people are all garbage. None of them should be on the bench. We should be looking to remove them from the bench. He should say, forget you, and go about doing what's necessary to protect the country. The judges are activists. It is true And I'm there with you, and I've come around to the other side of this through its frustration. I think on the majority of things, there might still be things that I hold out on. It is frustrating, but now you've got it. You've got it written. You've got it decided. You have the precedent. You get to have a stronger case going forward. And every time one of these things happen where the courts rule, well, you know, the Trump administration was right. No. That judge is an activist. No, that person overdid it. No, that person exceeded their authority. You create the precedent. You create the opportunity to have a better chance at it and to do it with more regularity in the future. You create the opportunity for yourself by being patient now. The problem is it's super hard to be patient now, considering the level of absolute despicable that comes from leftist judges. And what was this about not funding Judge Boasberg and Republicans voting against that? Here we go. The Federalist had the story. Sean Fleetwood doing the reporting here. That 46 House Republicans joined Democrats to defeat a bill amendment that would have stripped funding from 2 activist judges. So this was proposed by Chip Roy. Do me a favor, producer Landon. Look up Chip Roy, last name R-O-Y, congressman from Texas. Find his team, and let's see if we can get him on the show next week. I want to dig in. So it was an amendment to an appropriations package considered by the House, fiscal year 2026. So the measure was looking to cut the budgets of 2 judges in the D.C. District Court and the Court of Appeals by 20%. So what Roy said, Chip Roy, is that the activism is purposeful to try and thwart the duly elected president of the United States. And we, Congress, control the checkbook. Now, it should also be remembered that Congress also controls the courts. And you say to me, whoa. What happened to separate but equal? What happened to, not separate but equal, co-equal branches of government? I apologize there. What happened to that? Yes, they are co-equal branches of government, if you want to believe that. Oh, I do not believe that the judiciary was ever meant to have the power that it has. And I think there should be a real look at Marbury v. Madison, but we will get to that another time. The courts exist because of Congress. The Constitution only prescribes or makes a consideration for a Supreme Court. And it doesn't even give you a number of judges that the Supreme Court has to have. There is no number listed in the Constitution. We settled on 9. You could have 4. You could have 63. You can have as many Supreme Court justices as you wish, which is why the Democrats are always talking about packing the court. For the record, I hate the idea. I hate all of this nonsense, and I think the Republicans should add 20 members right now. Democrats are going to do it. Do it. Well, Tony, if that's the case, why not just get rid of the filibuster? Nuke the filibuster. You know, Democrats are going to do it. Oh, if I thought Republicans already had all the votes lined up and the 10 pieces of legislation ready to go and the whip count all done, if I thought they were organized enough in any way, shape, or form to drop the filibuster and get serious legislation through with 51 votes or 50 votes in the J.D. Vance tiebreak, absolutely. You know what my faith is in the Republican Party to have that process set up? Correct. 0. That's the problem. As a matter of pure strategy, if you want to get rid of the filibuster, you have to have everything lined up and ready to go. They don't. Democrats would. They don't. So you don't drop the filibuster. The court exists at the creation of Congress or by the creation of Congress. And if the court can create it or the Congress can create it, Congress can take it away. And I believe this is something we should be looking at. This is something we should be asking ourselves. Now, people like Glenn Reynolds, known as the Instapundit, if you've ever been to instapundit.com, a great, great site, aggregator of news, and Glenn Reynolds is excellent, a law professor, University of Tennessee, good man, good man. He argues that the answer is not less courts. The answer is more. Add more courts and put your people on those courts and therefore have more options and opportunities. It's really interesting. It's a really interesting take. But what happened was that they go to this and it gets voted against. The Republicans voted it down, 163 to 257. It's annoying. Now, maybe the argument is, well, it was part of this appropriations package. It should be a part of something else. Nah. If we're going to fight, let's fight. If we're going to see these justices engaged in a process of pure politics, one can use pure politics. The court still exists. You just have less money. That's wrong. I guarantee you, if Democrats have power, they're going to do exactly this. Mark this down. It's coming. I'm Tony Katz, and this is Tony Katz Today. I wasn't expecting to get into that subject, man. I've got so many things that I'm now not going to get to today. But I wonder if I'm going to get this pushback of how is it conservative to cut a budget? How all of a sudden did I not become a conservative? Because I see the importance of not allowing activist judges to go unpunished. Court is not a place for activism. Court is a place for justice to be blind, and activism is the exact opposite. Activism is the opposite of blind justice. It is saying, okay, who am I looking at? All right, my job is to help that person. That's activism in the courts. I oppose that, and I think we should be proactive in stopping it. Now, the La Historia was actually, it's from Ernesto Carrillo, E.P. Carrillo. This was a cigar that was also on my list. This was in my top 6. Nice smoke. Nice smoke. And Carrillo has done a really good job with a series of cigars, including the Encore. Now, I've had the Pledge and I've had the Allegiance, and right now I don't remember. They have a Pledge cigar, they have an Allegiance cigar, they have the La Historia. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it properly, which is really nice. And then they've got the Encore. I remember that I had the Allegiance. I'm like, this is a nice cigar. I had the Pledge and I put it down. I'm like, this is not all right. It could have just been the moment. The Encore is terrific. The Encore is a terrific cigar. But let me just double check some pricing right here on this. Yeah, I mean, if I'm looking at basically a Robusto, which is the smaller size, like 5-inch, and they've got it as 5 3/4 inches, 5 and a quarter inches, I should say. It's $14 a stick, and people say $14 for a Robusto. I don't know, and I understand those people. The price point's a little high for this, but it's nicely done. The Encore is just terrific. Terrific cigar. Really well done. Every day, we learn that Zoran Mamdani wasn't lying when he told us he was a communist. Tony Katz today, good to be with you. And this woman, Sia Weaver, who is frightening to look at sometimes. This mousy woman who is going to be in charge of tenants' rights, doesn't believe in property rights, thinks that private property is white supremacy, even though her mom owns a $1.6 million house. She has never done anything with her life. She's never created anything. She's never built anything. She only knows how to take. And she was on a podcast where she is explaining how rent control is the gateway to socialized housing.
That fighting for rent control was a strategic and critical first step in the fight for full social housing. So a lot of times people ask, why are we fighting for rent control when we have NYCHA? We should be fighting to save our public housing. We decided that through a program like rent control, we are able to sort of directly challenge the logic of unfettered profit in the real estate market. And we are able to directly challenge housing as a wealth building tool, and through regulation strike a blow to the entire real estate industry at once. And so the beauty of rent stabilization and rent control is that it weakens the speculative value of the real estate asset. The value is no longer based on what the landlord is able to get, but rather it's based on a state public board who's deciding how much rent is going up. And yes, that board is controlled by the real estate industry. And yes, there could be a better way to regulate it. But the idea is that we could weaken the entire industry at once through a strong rent control campaign, and that would strengthen our ability to do things like fight for social housing.
If you want to know what a communist sounds like, there it is. Mamdani is a communist. Bernie Sanders is a communist. Ocasio-Cortez is a communist. Sia Weaver here is a communist, and this is what they favor. You not having property rights. Property rights are the rights of free people. Without property rights, you're not free. And they're saying, yeah, that's what we want. Every day they're telling you. Every day they're saying you shouldn't own what you own, and we should use government to take it. Vote accordingly. These people are dangerous, and when they can't get what they want through regulation, they'll do it via the barrel of a gun, because history has already been written. This is Tony Katz today. Oh, this woman thinks she should be in charge. This woman who has never created anything. She has done nothing with her life. Zero. She hates Trump. Trump built things that create value. She wants to take that value and rip it from him. Who's the authoritarian? Good Lord. All right, so we've got the White House briefing coming up. Oh, it's going to be very exciting. I heard there's going to be punch and pie. So of course, I'm going to share it with you. Absolutely. How could I not bring you that? So we're gonna catch that after we come back. The radio show is in commercial break. We will be in break right now. Smoke them if you got them. Hang loose. And yeah, tickets.tonykatz.com for Trump 1 year later. The highs, lows, how we win the midterms. Red Tie Gala. It's going to be so much fun. The food, I just went over. The bourbon list is set. Made sure all the drinks were taken care of. The red carpet, it's going to be great. And people are like, Tony, it's going to be too fancy. It's going to be such a good time. Come have fun. Come join us. Tickets.tonykatz.com. Just get there and be a part of it. It's going to be so great. Cannot wait to show this to you. It's going to be incredible. It's good. Would you trust me? It's going to be amazing. All right, we are in a radio break. We're going to take the commercial break. Kick back, relax, smoke them if you got them. We'll be back in a few minutes. Welcome back, everybody. Tony Katz. Good to be with you. Tony Katz today. We've got a White House briefing that says coming soon. Wait, did they just get rid of it? It was on the list, and now it's not on the list? Most peculiar. All right. Well, if they've decided not to, they've decided not to. I thought they had decided to talk to us. I'm curious if it's not every. It's rarer that they're like, we're gonna have a press briefing, and then they're like, just kidding. Honest question. If Tony were to smoke a Dutch Master cigar, what color would his skin turn? Chartreuse or peach? And the answer is, we'll never know. We will never, ever, ever know. All right. All right, coming back. We'll see if indeed the press briefing happens, but we have a bunch to get to, and we will get right to it. If the media isn't lying about what's taking place in Minneapolis, they're not talking about it. I mean, there's, the everyday nonsense that's going on. People like Representative Vargas, who believe that the problem with all things in the world is ICE and ICE alone.
They shouldn't have more money at all. In fact,
No, not
the agency shouldn't continue as it is. They really have to drastically, and we're going to fight for that. We're fighting to drastically reduce the amount of money. So they only go after murderers and they only go after rapists. I mean, come on. What they're doing is they're attacking families.
No. They are removing people who are in the country illegally, Congressman. But how interesting it is. We were discussing this legislation that Congressman Chip Roy, this amendment that he wanted to add, that would reduce the funding to activist judges like Judge Boasberg out of D.C., and Republicans voted with Democrats to nix the idea. Oh, we can't lower their funding, but lower the funding for ICE? Oh, absolutely, that has to happen. I said it. They'll when they have the power, they'll do anything. When you have the power, how dare you think you can do anything? Tony Katz today. Good to be here. Good to be with you. Find everything over at TonyKatz.com. But this has become the new sensation. The conversations all having to do with, this terrible ICE. They shouldn't even exist. And look how they're violating the law. And, well, what kind of people are they anyway?
There's also a landscaper who's caregiver to a 9-year-old son with cerebral palsy who was swept up. He's been in this country for 20 years. What is the effect on people, individual families that I think maybe can get lost when we're seeing so many arrests in such a short amount of time, and simultaneously the effect on a broader psyche?
That's not journalism. That is, why don't you feel bad? We engage this conversation constantly. These people who want to think that their emotions should run our lives. Why do we have laws if the laws make us feel bad? If we listen to this MS Now host, it's okay to deport people, but not so many at once. What about the man who's been here for 20 years and is the caregiver to their 9-year-old son with cerebral palsy? Yeah, you're absolutely right, man. That is not an easy road to hoe right there. That's difficult stuff. He is here illegally. What now do we do? Well, because you have a 9-year-old son with cerebral palsy, we do nothing? We do nothing? What do you mean we do nothing? If you want to argue that we need to have these moments where there are circumstances extenuating and that we should want these people into the country, well, that would be a lot easier of a conversation to have if your fellow brethren of the political left weren't attacking ICE agents in Minneapolis doing their job. If you weren't interested in shooting ICE agents in Dallas. If you were actually interested in border security and telling people who broke the law, who are providing no value and engaged in violence, they're not welcome. But you don't even do that on the political left. You argue that every instance is proof that this should stop and that the people here illegally should be allowed to stay and should be allowed to profit and should be allowed, in some cases, to be violent criminals. Because no, not everybody who's come across the border is a violent criminal. But if we stop the people coming across the border, we would stop violent criminals coming across the border, which is why I favor the moves that we've made on the border. It's why I favor the idea of ICE and the value that they provide. You provide me this example, and I can provide you, well, here are the illegal immigrants who've gone about killing people like Laken Riley and a host of others. I can't notice that? The answer is, first, let's find out who's in the country illegally. Then let's put them in custody. We could have a conversation of, you know what, they've been here for 20 years and they're taking care of their 9-year-old kid with cerebral palsy. What do we want to do about that? Oh, that guy's a murderer? Bye. Oh, that guy isn't a murderer, but isn't taking care of a 9-year-old with cerebral palsy? Bye. Would you favor that, political left? No, you won't even engage that. Instead, you give me Eddie Glaude with conversations like this.
Right. I think, people are terrorized. People are deeply afraid. Folks are depressed. There's a sense that people feel hopeless, and then sometimes they're angry.
That is how the political right and independents have felt for years, while the left has allowed people into the country and while the political right didn't do enough to keep those who shouldn't be here out of the country. For 4 years under Joe Biden, the fear. You want to talk about the anger? Can we talk about the families of those women who've been raped and killed, those men killed, attacked, harmed by those here illegally? Again, this isn't a rational conversation. From Princeton University professor Eddie Glaude, this is emotional pablum. Can't run a country this way. And they think that they are the only people connected to it. They think they're the only ones who should be allowed to have, I don't know, some kind of feeling about this, that their emotion gives them some type of well, they're already elitist, some type of moral superiority. That's the word I was looking for. No, none, zero. You ain't special and you don't care more. Why don't you stop it? You are not special. And this argument that you're making is nonsense and childlike.
And they want to strike out. They want to figure out how do they, in so many ways, say no to what is being done in their names. We need to be clear, I think. The country faces a choice. It's a moral choice in some ways, with political implication about who we're going to be. And these folk are acting in the name of the country.
No, they are not. The people attacking ICE agents are not acting in the name of the country. They are acting to put an end to it. You want to debate? Again, I say to you, how much more do you have to hear from these people until you understand that they believe they have moral superiority and they should have dominion over you? Here he is excusing the violence. As you may know by now, there was a shooting in Minneapolis that took place. This shooting involved an ICE agent. if you were to listen to the press would tell you that ICE shot another innocent person. First things first, Renee Good was not innocent. I didn't say Renee Good should have been shot. I'll take an investigation for that. Renee Good was not innocent. That's what I said. Here's ICE. They're just out of control. They're shooting everybody. The story, if you haven't heard it by now, is that ICE was targeting someone in the country illegally who happened to be from Venezuela. And ICE tried to stop this person in their car. They drove off and they rammed their car into another vehicle. This suspect gets out and runs. ICE pursues. An ICE agent tackles him, and they're in a struggle. Because why would you listen to an ICE agent? Why? Renee Good doesn't listen to law enforcement, and somehow she's a hero. ICE agent shouldn't think that this illegal immigrant is going to listen. That's not happening. The fight ensues. Two people come out of a house and attack the ICE agent with a shovel and a broomstick. The suspect gets free, and the suspect starts hitting the ICE agent with a shovel and a broomstick. The ICE agent pulls their weapon and fires at the suspect, hitting him in the leg. The three of them retreat back to the house. ICE is then able to get into the house, and they are arrested. How does the press discuss this? The press says ICE shoots a protester. It's an obscenity. They lie. They refuse to tell the story. They want to engage in an emotional manipulation, and all of it is wrong. And we're not going to fall for it for a second because they have no moral superiority. None. And we should be people who follow the law. The press briefing is beginning. I'll bring it to you when we come back. Keep it here. This is Tony Katz today. All right, let me bring you the briefing, guys. She is up there.
Payments are now at their lowest level in 2 years, and we expect this decrease to continue. As someone who was enormously successful in real estate, President Trump understands that owning a home is about more than just having a physical asset. It's about empowering young people to stake their claim in the American dream. It's about giving newlyweds a place to make their own and start a family. It's about promoting the spirit of hard work, determination, and yes, the rugged individualism that the greatest country in the
It's a Mamdani reference.
President Trump knows America is strongest when it's a nation of owners, not renters, and he is determined to unlock that opportunity for as many Americans as possible. That's why he will outline additional housing initiatives during his major speech in Davos next week, and we look forward to seeing many of you there. Finally, this morning, President Trump unveiled a healthcare plan for America called the Great Healthcare Plan, and a video message detailing his solutions to lower costs for all Americans and significantly improve our healthcare system. The Great Healthcare Plan will accomplish this through 4 common sense pillars. Number 1, permanently lowering prescription drug prices. Congress can get this done by codifying President Trump's historic Most Favored Nation initiatives into law to guarantee Americans the same low prices for prescription drugs that people in other countries around the world pay. Additionally, by increasing consumer choice by making more verified, safe pharmaceutical drugs available for over-the-counter purchases. Number 2, the Great Healthcare Plan will stop sending big insurance companies billions in extra taxpayer-funded subsidy payments and instead send that money directly to eligible Americans to allow them to buy the health insurance of their choice. Additionally, by funding a cost-sharing reduction program for healthcare plans and ending kickbacks from pharmacy benefit managers to large brokerage middlemen. Number 3, the Great Healthcare Plan will maximize price transparency by requiring any healthcare provider or insurer who accepts either Medicare or Medicaid to publicly and prominently post their pricing and fees to avoid surprise medical bills. This is an incredibly popular policy
The
that
posting
has been bipartisan for many
is
years, and
something that
President
people have
Trump
been
is
talking about
officially
and
and firmly
wanting.
calling on Congress
Know what
to
you're
get
paying.
it done. And number 4, holds big insurance companies accountable by requiring them to publish rate and coverage comparisons up front on their websites in plain English, so consumers and everyday Americans can make the best purchasing decisions for them and their families. These are common sense actions that make up President Trump's great healthcare plan, and they represent the most comprehensive and bold agenda to lower healthcare costs to have ever been considered by the federal government. Congress should immediately take up President Trump's plan and pass it into law. For Americans watching at home, you can visit greathealthcare.gov right now for more information on the Great Healthcare Plan. And with that, we will open it up to questions. In our new media seat today, we have a familiar face, Riley Gaines. I'm surprised it took us a year to get you here, but I'm very happy to see you. I know you have a new podcast, The Riley Gaines Show. And so thank you. And you brought a beautiful baby and your lovely husband too. So thank you so much for joining. And why don't you kick us off?
Absolutely. Well, thank you. First and foremost, congratulations to you. Being a girl mom will change your life in the best way possible. So excited you get to shop all the pink and the frilly and the bows. I was in Washington, D.C. earlier this week for the Supreme Court case. There were 2 arguments that were heard surrounding
Coming back to the show.
sex-based rights and if it's constitutional for states to pass laws that ultimately protect those rights for women. If the Supreme Court rules as anticipated in favor of maintaining these sex-based rights, is the administration prepared to take action against the states? I believe at this point it's 23 states that don't have those protections for women?
Absolutely. And as you know, Riley, the administration already has done so. We've taken action in a number of fronts against these states who are failing to uphold the president's executive orders and this administration's policy of simply protecting women in women's sports and in women's private spaces.
The question came from Riley Gaines, who, of course, made her bones as being someone who said, hey, Leah Thompson's a man. Are we all crazed? Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. I've interviewed Riley Gaines myself. She has become the champion on this subject, becoming unbelievably effective. Was talking about how the Supreme Court heard 2 different arguments just yesterday or the day before regarding this idea of boys and girls sports and protecting women in women's sports. And what will the White House, the Trump administration, do if states refuse to follow along with where the court may go? Considering the indications of right now, in her view, are that they're going to agree that there is a way to separate regarding sex, and it is not discriminatory. So the White House briefing is going on. Karoline Leavitt talked a lot about healthcare prices. Let's take it to some of the questions that the press are asking.
Is it underway? What can you share about that? And then also, the president said yesterday that Delcy Rodriguez was, quote, a terrific person. Does the president trust the remaining members of the Maduro regime?
I will say to your first question, the meeting was about to begin as I was stepping out of the Oval Office moments ago. So my understanding is that it's underway right now. I know the president was looking forward to this meeting, and he's was expecting it to be a good and positive discussion with Ms. Machado, who is really a remarkable and brave voice for many of the people of Venezuela. So the president looks forward to obviously talking to her about the realities on the ground in the country and what is taking place. As for Ms. Rodriguez, the president did speak with her directly this week. As you know, he revealed that to all of you yesterday. And Secretary Rubio and the administration have been in constant communication with Ms. Rodriguez and other members of the interim government in Venezuela. They have been extremely cooperative. They have thus far met all of the demands and requests of the United States and of the president. And I think you have all seen that play out. We obviously had a $500 million energy deal that was struck in large part because of the cooperation from Ms. Rodriguez. Venezuela and Ms. Rodriguez have also confirmed that they will be releasing political prisoners from Venezuela. There were 5 Americans who were recently released this week as well. So the president likes what he's seeing and will expect that cooperation to continue.
And regarding the investigation into the leak that the president referenced yesterday, what is the administration's position on the Washington Post reporter? The Post has reported that she was told that she is not a target of the investigation. Does the administration believe she did anything wrong? And then also, what is the administration's position on the Pentagon Papers case from the 1970s that affirmed reporters' right to publish classified information under certain circumstances?
Well, since this is an active investigation, I don't want to comment on it much more than what we did yesterday to obviously confirm the investigation. And I can confirm what the Attorney General stated and the President as well, which is that the individual, unfortunately, a contractor at the Pentagon, chose to unlawfully leak classified and very serious information to this Washington Post reporter. Hence why the reporter's home was looked into by the.
We got into that yesterday, that the reporter was not the one member of the subject of the investigation, but rather this leak and this moving of classified information. But to get back to what was being said prior about Trump's meeting with Machado, the Nobel Prize winner, the opposition to Nicolas Maduro, that meeting is happening, as she said, right now. The release of prisoners is always great, and the release of Americans is always fantastic. Absolutely. But this is the first time I've heard anybody refer to Delcy Rodriguez, the vice president of Venezuela, the number 2 to Nicolas Maduro, as the interim regime or interim leadership. It is the first time I have heard that terminology be used. So the question is, if it's interim to what? Another election? Will we be the election observers? To the guy who won the previous election, Gonzalez, being installed? To a decision that the United States will make with almost unilaterally to say, okay, Machado, you're the opposition leader now, and here it is. It's the first time I've heard interim. And interim means, well, something has to be coming. What will that system be? Back to the presser.
State TV broadcasting an implicit threat to the president's life. It was images of the assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, according to reports, with the message, "This time it will not go wrong."
I have not seen that, to be honest with you, Jackie. We'll take a look, and I'll let the president and his national security team examine that footage to ensure its legitimacy. Again, I haven't seen it, so I can't comment on it. What I will say with respect to Iran is that the president and his team have communicated to the Iranian regime that if the killing continues, there will be grave consequences. And the president received a message, as he revealed to all of you and the whole world yesterday, that the killing and the executions will stop. And the president understands today that 800 executions that were scheduled and supposed to take place yesterday were halted. And so the president and his team are closely monitoring this situation, and all options remain on the table for the president.
Netanyahu encouraged him against strikes.
Look, it's true that President spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu, but I would never details about their conversation without giving the expressed approval by the president himself. Ouija.
Thank you, Karoline. Is it still the president's assessment that it would be very hard for Ms. Machado to leave Venezuela because he says she lacks the respect and support in that country? And will he raise that with her today?
I think the president's assessment that you just pointed out was based on realities on the ground. It was a realistic assessment based on what the president was reading and hearing from his advisors and national security team. And at this moment in time, his opinion on that matter has not changed.
He has also said that he would
so this has been the argument, that here goes Maduro, he gets captured, and the government didn't fall, and the people didn't say, we want Machado to lead us, and the military didn't move. Everyone kind of stayed right where they are. And the argument was that where was the movement to a Machado, to this other guy, Gonzalez? Where was the movement to something new? None of the players that would have to move moved. And maybe you'd have to cajole those people in a way that we were not prepared to do at the moment. And maybe that while Machado is a force for the opposition, she may not be the force to lead the nation. So that seems to be the conversation now, and that's what Trump said. So now that they're meeting today, well, I don't know how that part goes, where it's like, yeah, you're doing incredible work, and you won the Nobel Prize, and rightfully so, but yeah, you can't do this. Like, I don't know how that comes together. I don't know what it is Machado is going to say to him in that meeting. But again, I go back to it. If you want to enable the idea or agree with the idea that Trump is bringing back the Monroe Doctrine, which wanted to limit European influence in the Western Hemisphere, and we want to use it today to limit Russian and Chinese influence in the Western Hemisphere, well, then you have to get rid of the Maduro regime, and that's everybody, because they're all communists and Russian and Chinese influenced. More press conference coming up. I'm Tony Katz. Let's bring it back to it.
Operations to remove violent criminals from the streets of Minnesota, from the streets of California, from the streets of New York, and from the streets of every state across this country. And you don't see these riots and this vandalism taking place in states like Florida. Why? Because you have a governor in that state who has empowered federal and local authorities to work together. And it's despicable what we're seeing from these Democrat politicians, especially in sanctuary states and cities across the country.
Karoline.
Go ahead, John.
Oh, thank you so much. My question is, President Trump has talked twice in recent days, once at the Kennedy Center and then to Reuters again last night about canceling the election. Why is he talking about this?
I believe you're referring to the president's interview at Reuters last night. I was in that interview. It was a closed door interview. Obviously, there was not audio or video. The president was simply joking. He was saying, we're doing such a great job. We're doing everything the American people thought. Maybe we should just keep rolling. But he was speaking facetiously.
And then one more.
Sure.
On the labor secretary. She's under investigation. Has he spoken to her about this?
I don't know if the president has spoken directly to the secretary. If they have, I'm unfamiliar with that conversation, but I have spoken to the president about that report regarding the secretary. He's aware of the internal investigation and he stands by the secretary, and he thinks that she's doing a tremendous job at the Department of Labor.
That she's got a lover
American workers.
who is one of her subordinates.
You were mentioning a moment ago about working federal, state, local officials in Minneapolis. Governor Walz's office is saying today that he's trying to get a hold directly with the president. Have they spoken? And if they haven't, why haven't they spoken? If there's a desire from Walz, if they're saying to de-escalate what's happening there.
I'm not sure if that's a genuine offer to speak with the president. I was with the president about 30 minutes ago and they hadn't spoken at that point. Look, the president is always willing to answer the phone when people pick up and call. When there was another tragic shooting many months ago in Governor Walz's state, he spoke directly with the governor. But I would ask that the governor stops inciting the harassment and illegal obstruction of law enforcement in his state. All ICE and federal law enforcement are trying to do are remove people like this off of the streets of Governor Walz's city in Minneapolis and of his state in Minnesota. If you look at some of the individuals in this photo, these are all illegal alien criminals who came into our country under the previous administration. This is some of the most disturbing crimes you will ever read about. And there's only a few reporters in this room who will actually talk about these individuals. This is all ICE is trying to do. They are trying to remove people like this from Governor Walz's state. And so, yes, he should pick up the phone and he should say that he will cooperate with this president and with the federal government in making Minnesota safer, because that's all President Trump and his administration want to do. Mary.
Thanks, Karoline. The president says he wants money to go directly to Americans so they can buy their own insurance. How exactly would this work? And can the president assure Americans that this will be enough to cover their healthcare costs?
So this is the second principle in the president's healthcare plan, lowering insurance premiums specifically and ensuring that that money is going directly back to the American people and cutting the kickbacks that then raise those premiums. So this plan, once put into legislative text and passed by Congress and sent to the president's desk, will stop sending big insurance companies billions of an extra taxpayer-funded subsidy payments and instead send that money directly to eligible Americans to allow them to buy the health insurance of their choice through, you may have heard it be referred to as health savings accounts. Whether that ends up being the actual name of such accounts, we'll have to see. Again, Congress and the White House are going to work together to put this plan into action. And then secondly, the Great Healthcare Plan will fund a cost-sharing reduction program for healthcare plans, which will save taxpayers at least $36 billion and reduce the most common Obamacare plan premiums by over 10%. And that's according to the Congressional Budget Office.
But 20 million Americans in recent weeks have seen their healthcare costs soar. Can he assure them that if this plan is put in place, that they will be able to cover those costs?
If this plan is put in place, every single American who has health care in the United States will see lower costs as a result. They will see more transparency. All of these proposals that are within the Great Healthcare Plan are incredibly popular with the American people, and they will impact everyone, not just a small fraction of those who are within the healthcare marketplace, but every single American will continue to see their costs go down. And I will note that they already are with respect to prescription drug prices. We look at what the president has done with most favored nations. You've seen these big pharmaceutical companies in the Oval Office saying that this president and his team were nonstop around the clock pressuring us and negotiating with us to lower the cost of prescription drugs for Americans. And we are already seeing that to the tune, in some cases, of more than 500%. And that Trump RX website is something that the administration will be formally not launching very soon, so Americans will have access to those lower costs of drugs.
Lower costs should come via regulation and not via force, but neither here nor there. Tony Katz today. It's the White House press briefing. That's Karoline Leavitt who is speaking. I'm not sure familiar with everything in this legislation idea, but when it comes to pricing, and hey, here it is. It's written out. It's transparent. It's totally accessible, and you're knowing what things are going to cost immediately. That is something that's popular. That is something that people do want, I think, across the board, regardless of party. That's something for sure that people want. Government engaging force and saying you'll do this and you'll do that, and not looking at maybe the regulatory environment that has caused these issues. I think that's a great problem. That's just me, but it's going to be popular. Doesn't mean it just because something is popular doesn't mean it's a good idea. Capping credit card rates, interest rates at 10%, terrible idea. Wildly popular, but terrible idea. Let's bring it back to the press briefing if we could.
Is like with all decisions, it's a decision for the president to make. And he said to Reuters in that interview last night that he thinks he'll be finally making that decision in the next couple of weeks. So we will see.
And very quickly, there's been some criticism from other governments about Grok and XAI, the Twitter AI bot, and things it's been doing to manipulate images, including whether that would violate the Take It Down Act that the First Lady has supported. We've not heard from this administration on it. Elon Musk says that they've disabled that, but I wanted to ask you whether the administration has a position and whether that's something that you will be pursuing, or whether the president has talked to Mr. Musk about that.
Yes, I will talk to the Office of Science and Technology, and we will get you a firm statement and answer on exactly where the administration stands. I don't want to speak on that without speaking with the experts on it. Yes.
Just to follow up on the healthcare plan,
One
one of the things in the Affordable Care Act was coverage of pre-existing conditions. Is there any discussion or inclusion on that issue in the president's plan?
The president's plan that he outlined today will have no impact on individuals in this country with pre-existing conditions. Obviously, that's a continued conversation that the White House will have with Congress, but that's not the president's intention with the Great Healthcare Plan. Go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. Two questions on Minneapolis.
And then you, go ahead.
Two questions on Minneapolis, one on the ICE agent, the other on the rioting. I believe last night there were protesters or rioters that rifled through an FBI car, took weapons. We had a reporter embedded with ICE who said that she saw constant harassment all evening. Can you speak to the rhetoric we're hearing from Democrat politicians, whether they are causing violence against ICE, as well as some of the headlines we've seen, not including the full story?
Yeah, I mean, to your first point, I think I've addressed that these Democrat governors and mayors in not just Minnesota, but in states across the country are essentially, they've referred to ICE agents who, again, are brave men and women. And I would encourage everyone in this room, and I would encourage Governor Walz and other Democrats who are demeaning law enforcement to sit down and have a cup of coffee with an ICE agent or a Border Patrol agent. These are great, patriotic men and women who have families, who put on the uniform every day and are following our nation's immigration laws at the direction of their bosses and again, at the direction of the law. They are simply trying to enforce the law. And the Democrat Party has demeaned these individuals. They've even referred to them as Nazis and as the Gestapo. And that is absolutely leading to the violence we're seeing in the streets.
Yes.
If you look at some of the images out of Minneapolis last night, look at this vehicle. Look at what it says. It says F ICE. You have these individuals who are putting their middle finger, proudly so, at the camera. Another ICE individual, a vehicle that was vandalized last night by these left-wing agitators. People don't do this without encouragement from people in power who make them feel like it's okay.
Yes.
Here's another one. And I'm pretty sure this car, you can't see it, said the best agent is a dead agent or something to that effect. This is despicable rhetoric that we're seeing. And the media is absolutely complicit in this violence, because if you look at the
Yes.
headline from CNN, protests erupt after federal agent shoots man in Minneapolis. That is not the story. That is not the truth. If you actually want to know the truth, you can look at what the Department of Homeland Security released, which is that this ICE agent was executing a targeted operation against a Venezuelan illegal alien who was unlawfully present in the country, who fled by car and then fled by foot. And when this ICE agent tried to detain the individual, 3 more of his comrades came rushing out of a house and started ambushing and attacking the ICE agent. They used a shovel or a broom to smash his face in. And so, yes, that agent had to use self-defense and take up his weapon to protect his own life. That is what's happening on the streets of Minneapolis. That's what's happening on the streets, unfortunately, of these Democrat-run cities and states where you have elected officials who are encouraging such violence against our brave men and women in law enforcement.
Absolutely the fact.
Two questions. First, a follow-up on.
I'm going to get back to this X story really quick, because the story about X Twitter is how Europe does not in any way value free speech. And Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, has shown himself as absolutely opposed to it. He wants social media to be stopped. He wants to be able to have access to people's cell phones. He does not believe that you have any right to encryption. It is the UK that tried to get Apple to invent backdoors into the phones so the UK could get into them, which would affect every Apple user around the globe. And I do believe that the United States has to be proactive in pushing back and saying you have no right to the data of United States citizens, and we'll fight you if we have to. But this thing about X and its AI, Grok, and the images it can create. So it came out the other day that you can, certainly with AI and with the Grok AI, you can create images. And you can create images that are suggestive. And I said, well, what does this mean? Well, people were creating images of female politicians in bikinis. And I said, okay. Hey, Grok, do you see this as a problem? Like these images could be used to harm the reputation of the subject of the images. And Grok responded, I'm paraphrasing here, with basically, someone could do something like that, but we don't think Grok should be limited in its ability to create them. I said, so you could create an image of, and I mentioned an image, and like, yeah. And I said, you don't see that as a problem? And they were like, no. I think that we should be asking ourselves whether or not that's a problem. And so when it was referenced, the First Lady and the Take It Down Act, which is the idea of things like revenge porn and a whole host of subjects, where people are creating imagery or taking private videos and posting it, and how this affects people's lives. First, we have to address it from just a rational viewpoint of what kind of people are we? Well, we're gonna utilize AI to destroy people, to create images of them in provocative ways that they never were, to try and humiliate or demean or really destroy reputation, destroy opportunity, destroy reputation. That is madness. That we would think that we should make that easier to do. But do we want to be in the business of limiting parody? Because isn't that also it? We've determined that parody is allowed. I don't know if we're discussing parody here, if it's name the Politico in some stage of undress in some specific scene. I think that the question is a real one. And that question is far different than the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom saying, you can't say things we don't like. If I say something about, pick the Politico, Nancy Mace, Congresswoman, South Carolina. If I say something about Nancy Mace, I can say anything. If I create the imagery of Nancy Mace in some type of situation, am I no longer, is that still free speech, or am I engaging in a slander, a libel, a reputation destruction that's actionable? I think they're two different things. If I state that Islamists have no place in a civil society or in Western civilization, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the UK, thinks I'm the problem when I've engaged in something factual or at least an opinion. He wants that removed. He wants you not to be able to enter the country, and he has said this to people. He has told people, no. The UK has decided you're not entitled to a visa. You're not good you are not a valuable piece of the public good, or you cannot increase the public good. So we're not going to have you in the country. That's nuts, because I mentioned that Islamists are a danger the world's over. Because I mentioned that the UK has been overrun by Islamists, because I've stated quite clearly that Prince William, who will be King William, will be the last king of England if he doesn't do something about this. For that, 12,000 people who have posted things like that, if you will, on social media are in jail or are dealing with the police coming after them. But the Islamists themselves, nothing happens. That's a problem. That's an ugly guy. The UK needs to send him on his way. But should we say to the technology, yes, you can create imagery that will damage and ruin reputations, ruin lives, denigrate and demean in that way? I do not know if we should do such a thing. I think we should be shying away from such things. And maybe the answer is, Tony, if you're asking societally what we should do, maybe you're right. But maybe you can't stop the technology from being the technology. Maybe you can't decide what it is that people do with it. Maybe that is the answer. We will continue that conversation. Keep it here. I'm Tony Katz, and this is Tony Katz Today. So I asked Gronk, did you really change these things? Did you really make it so you can't create this image? Oh, no, you can create anything you want. Literally anything you want. Now, some things I don't ask it to create because I don't think I want that anywhere in my life. I'm telling you, this is about to be a thing. This is about to be a major league thing. Oh, it's gonna get ugly up in here. It's gonna get very ugly. All right, coming back to the show in another minute or two. A quick press briefing today. Quick one. Let me see where else I wanted to go. Oh, that's right, Virginia. Excuse me. Virginia. If you want a great example of why you need to get your kids out of public education, why we need to win elections, this is it. That's coming up in just about 30 seconds. I hope to see you there. This is next Saturday, January 24th. Trump 1 year later, the Red Tie Gala. The highs, the lows, how we win the midterms. Downtown Indianapolis. Come on out. Tickets.TonyKatz.com. It's going to be so great. Food, the bourbon, the laughs. I've got it together. It's going to be such a good night. It's going to be a great show. Hope to see you there. Tickets.TonyKatz.com. Trump 1 year later. I want to see you there. Come on out. It's going to be amazing. Virginia decides not to stick with more of the same regarding Glenn Youngkin. Of course, he was not able to run again. And Winsome Earl Sears runs for the Republican side. And as I learned later, man, they did not run good races in Virginia. And the Democrat, Abigail Spanberger, wins. And she will be the next governor of Virginia. Tony Katz today. Great to be with you. And we already know that Democrats have been able to get hold of the state legislature there. And what are they doing now? A new bill would prohibit public schools in the state from describing January 6, 2021 as a peaceful protest. Democrats have filed legislation. It would require any public school district that wants to teach about January 6th to describe it as, quote, an event unprecedented, violent attack on the United States democratic institutions, infrastructure, and representatives for the purpose of overturning the results of the 2020 presidential election. It used to be that abortion was the religion of the left. Now it's January 6th. It was such a violent action that the police let people in and they walked between the velvet ropes. I didn't say there weren't violent people. I said to explain it as they want to explain it is not to tell the whole story. But the whole story is not what they want. The story that they want to tell is what they want. And they're hell-bent on doing it. Hell-bent on only giving one side, like they did in the hearings that were put together for prime time by a television showrunner with no rebuttal. And then where are the records? Where are their notes? Where is what they did? Did that stuff really get destroyed? You're watching a gaslighting operation happen. There were people who engaged in violence. They should be in jail. There were people who did nothing wrong. They shouldn't be in jail. It was a riot. It wasn't an insurrection. Minneapolis is an insurrection. That It's not? Prove it. I can prove to you that January 6th was a riot, and I opposed it then. We're attacking law enforcement, disregarding the laws of the land, and proudly getting support by members of Congress. Insurrection in Minneapolis. Changed my mind. Find everything at TonyKatz.com. More to get to. It's Tony Katz today. These people. Good Lord. These people. How else should you describe traders? How else should you describe traders? Right now, I describe them as Democrats supporting riots in Minneapolis. Really shameful stuff. Thanks so much for asking there. I'm happy to have answered it. For sure. Guys, I appreciate you being here. I got to run. The show continues at WIBC.com. So to be sure, you want to be sure to check that out and keep listening. I'm back tomorrow at noon and looking forward to it. Don't forget to subscribe. Can't thank you guys enough, but I got to run from the live stream. Usually I hang around a little bit. I got to run from it, guys. I will catch you tomorrow. Thanks again so very much. You guys take care.